Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universal Society of Craft and Upton. I'm Reverend Daniel. Today is Sunday, February 28th, 2021. Thank you for bearing with us. This morning was a bit of a struggle to get on, but we're doing our best. The tech team is hard at work behind the scenes, making all of this possible, and we are really grateful for all of their efforts. Thank you so much to Kevin Hayes, to Lynn Kraft, to David Van Zandt, and to Barry Hall. Let's get this together. This church is dedicated to the wisdom that beneath all of our differences and behind all of our diversity, there is one essential unity that binds us together forever, despite time, despite space, despite the dimensions that seem to separate us. We are held by this one essential unity. We commit ourselves to the work of building and sustaining our unity and our deeper connections, even now, as we are both physically distant and meeting as a virtual faith community. And so we pause in silent witness to that commitment that we make. Thank you. Our prelude music this morning is one that is very familiar to us. It is Breaths by Issei Barnwell, using the words adapted from Barago Jup, a Senegalese, Franco-Senegalese poet, and it is performed by Lauren Scott. Listen deeply to these beautiful words and the beautiful music.
Bum 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 bum. Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never left. The dead are not under the earth. They're in the rustling trees, they're in the groaning woods, they're in the crying grass, they're in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They're in the woman's breast, they're in the wailing child. They're with us in our homes, they're with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Listen to
Breaths, beautiful. Thank you, Lauren. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton. I'm Debbie Porali, and I am your worship associate for today. Our mission as a church is to spark the spirit and the mind, kindle loving community, and ignite social justice in the world. Here at UUSGU, we strive to be a community that affirms, promotes, and celebrates all people, including those of different religious backgrounds, political perspectives, age, education, socioeconomic status, marital status, family structure, affectional and sexual orientation, gender and its expression, racial and cultural identity, ethnicity, national origin, and mental and physical health and ability. Whoever and wherever you are, welcome. We are glad that you are part of our online community. Please see your digital order of service for more information. If you are joining us live on Facebook, please take this opportunity to share this broadcast with your friends in real time by clicking the share button on your screen. A good thing is made better by sharing it. Thank you. To those who are joining us for the first time, please let us know who you are by filling out the visitor form, commonly known as our digital mango card, and you'll find the link in the chat. We also want everyone to know that we are following COVID-19 protocols. All of the music videos that you see are recorded pre-COVID-19. You may see some people sitting in our pews, and really these are cardboard cutouts. It's not an illusion. These are the cardboard cutouts that some of our members have made to help boost the spirits of our on-site team in this time of digital isolation. Our spiritual theme of the month is spirit, which we can feel as the essential quality of community and the perceived power of places. Regarding this theme, let's consider this excerpt from the poem Sacred Places by Alan Bennett. Where are your sacred places? Islands of peace and sanctuary in this hectic and troubled world where time and space becomes obscured and eternity sits upon your shoulders. The cathedral in Chartres, a small church nestled against a mountain, the Yosemite Valley at early evening. A sacred place can be a sacred moment. Where is your sacred place? That can also be a moment outside of time that simply takes you a journey within yourself to a reflecting pool, clear and pristine, with a gentle and caressing breeze at your back, the eternal mirror that sees forever where messages appear upon your palace wall, Now your soul and spirit are finally touched by something greater than your present self, and your life is invited to change forever. In lighting the flaming chalice, we join in a tradition that unites Unitarian Universalists throughout the country and around the globe. Together, we tend the flame to acknowledge and to celebrate the light of the holy and the brilliance at the core of every person. Together, we shine a light on the path to deeper understanding and compassion, a beacon of hope for all to follow. Let's say these words together. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Please enjoy the following video. We come together, we set aside time to hear from each other, to strengthen the bonds of beloved community, to grow our spirits, which is what we are here to do. This is the time to share the profound transitions, transformations, trials, and insights that add depth and meaning to our living. Please add your joys and sorrows using the comments section of our Facebook Live broadcast. Reverend Daniel will read these out as they come in. We want you to take part in this interactive worship experience. And while those are coming in, I will just looked at the calendar today and realizing it's the last day of February, that daylight savings starts 2 weeks from today, and it will be light longer, for which I am very grateful and looking forward.
I see that the joys and sorrows are indeed coming in. We begin with one from Norm. We're very sad to announce that Heather's father-in-law, David, has died of COVID. We will miss this gentle, kind man. Thank you for sharing that with us, and our thoughts and our prayers are with you, Norm, and your whole family. We have a number of sympathies expressed for that last sharing. Elizabeth writes, grateful that my uncle has recovered from COVID-19 and should be allowed to go home this week. That is a cause for gratitude. Checker writes, joyful for seeing and hearing the great horned owl once again, night of the full moon. Thank you for sharing that, Checker. And that was a glorious full moon. I wonder if you're talking about Friday. You know, I'm grateful that we can meet in this way. I just think back, I've been doing a lot of reading about just history in general, and just imagine had this pandemic occurred at any other time, it would have been impossible for us to connect in the way that we are today. And despite its frustrations, and there are many with Zoom and with Facebook and all the others, at least we can keep this bridge of communication open and travel over it together. Suzanne writes, "So very grateful and joyful that our oldest son and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren have passed through and healed from COVID. Our youngest grandson still tests negative. A great mystery and a great blessing." Thank you for sharing that, Suzanne. Julie went to the foot doctor yesterday and is looking good. 2 weeks to go. Thank you for sharing that, Russ. Let us bring our time of sharing to a close. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing these deep feelings, thoughts, and experiences, whether it be the sadness of loss of life, for which we as a beloved community stand with you and hold you in our hearts, whether it's the gratitude for recovery from COVID and other health issues for which we are also sharing in your gratitude, and also the sacred places where we hear nature's voices and beautiful sounds. In hearing these joys and sorrows, we are blessed and humbled to truly be reminded of the glories and the mysteries of the gift we call life.
I invite you to hear these words as our prayer and to hear them in a meditative spirit. This is Songs for the People by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper, a mid-19th century Unitarian from Philadelphia, also an African-American woman, writer, and abolitionist. Her effigy is here in our sanctuary, thanks to Caroline Scott. Hear these words as a prayer. Hear them in a spirit of meditation. Let me make songs for the people, songs for the young and old, songs that stir like a battle cry, wherever they are sung. Not for the clashing of sabers, for the carnage, nor for strife, but songs to thrill the hearts of people with more abundant life. Let me make songs for the weary, amid life's fret and fever, till hearts shall relax their tension and care-worn brows forget. Let me sing for the little children before their footsteps stray. Our world, so worn and weary, needs music pure and strong to hush the jangle and the discords of sorrow, pain, and wrong. Music to soothe all its sorrows till war and crime shall cease, and the hearts of people grow tender so that we might girdle the world with peace. Let us all make beautiful music in our own way. We pray for these things and so much more. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to rise in spirit as we all sing our hymn for today, Every Time I Feel the Spirit. And just let that beautiful spiritual take you to wherever it is you need to be to experience that sense of connection and peace. Enjoy.
Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Upon the mountain, my God spoke. Out of his mouth came fire and smoke. Looked all around me, looked so fine. I asked my God if all were mine. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. The river Jordan runs right cold. It chills the body, not the soul. There ain't but one train on this track. It runs to heaven and right back. Every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Yes, every time I feel the Spirit moving in my heart, I will pray. Moving in my heart, I will pray. Moving in my heart, I will pray.
Thank you for that. That was really lovely. It sounds like our music director, Barry Hall, and Beth Hall were on that, perhaps others. Thank you for that. Our reading this morning is Thoughts on Sunday Morning When Prevented by a Snowstorm from Going to Church by Margaret Fuller. Hark, the church bell going. Sweet is the time passed in the house of prayer. We, on this day, assemble in the temple of our God and use our breath to worship him who gave it. And though no glorious relics of old days, the gifts of humble kings and suppliant warriors deck the fair shrine or cluster round the pillars, no stately windows decked with various hues, no blazon of dead saints repel the sun. Though no cloud-courting dome or sculptured frieze excite the fancy and allure the taste, no fragrant censer steep the sense in luxury, no lofty chant swell on the vanquished soul. Ours is the faith of reason. To the earth we leave the senses to interpret her. The heaven-born only should commune with heaven, the immaterial with the infinite. But here, calmly, we wait in solemn expectation. Here ends our reading.
Good morning. First, I would like to invite all the young and the young at heart to come forward and get comfortable at home for a time for all ages. So this morning, we are talking about how we can pay attention to the presence or the spirit of a place to learn and connect and to grow from that. And so I would like to demonstrate one way to do that with this place, our church, our spiritual home. The first thing that I do when I'm trying to connect is to quiet down and to open my senses and take in the surroundings of the place. So I'm going to ask Kevin for a little help if he's able to show you all at home what I'm looking at and this beautiful sanctuary here. So as we're looking out, you can see we have all this beautiful light and this beautiful space to gather together as a community. And so I'm thinking first, my first clue is that community and celebrating community together is really important to the spirit of this place. And then actually, look at this. We've got these people in the pews, even though we don't have physically people here. And that is something really incredible to hold up. So, and if you look at the farthest, all the way to the left, you will see Louis Latimer. And he is an ancestor of our faith tradition, and he's right here projecting into our sanctuary, into this place. And so I'm going to invite you back to the center here and invite us to think about the story of Louis Latimer, one of the ancestors of our faith tradition, a Unitarian, as a way into understanding the spirit of this place. Louis Latimer, he was born in 1848, not too far from here in Chelsea, Massachusetts, at a time when his parents, as Black Americans, had to escape from slavery, and they had to work very, very hard and sacrifice in order to provide Louis that freedom that he had in his life. So Louis, perhaps because he understood how hard that was and how horrible it was to be a slave from his parents, he enlisted in the Navy and he fought to abolish slavery in this country in the Civil War. He enlisted at the age of 15. So there's my second clue that I'm thinking from his life that I wanted to share with you all is his commitment to working for the fair and equal treatment of everyone, regardless of the color of skin or any other differences, which is so important to our community. We learn that from the story of him as one of our ancestors. So Louis, when he came back to Boston after he was in the Navy, he got a job as an office assistant in a patent law firm. And this is something really incredible about him. He watched as they were creating these mechanical drawings for patents, which were important to show, the special and specific ideas that were being patented. And he taught himself how to do this. And I have an example. This isn't something that he did, but this is an example of a very, very precise drawing of our church. I don't know if you can see it at home or not, but he was doing such precise drawing that they promoted him to a drafter for these patents. And so this is a third thing that I want to hold up from his story about the spirit of this place is this commitment to constant learning and growth, which is so important to us. So Lewis, as he grew, he got married, and he started to co-invent new ideas himself and invent new ideas himself. And one of the things he's known for is an improvement on the very first light bulb that Thomas Edison made. Because the light bulb that Thomas Edison made would only last for a couple days, and then it would go out. So it wasn't very practical. Well, Lewis Latimer actually created a patent for a type of a filament that was in the light bulb so that it would last for longer. And this was so important, then he was hired to help install these lights all across Canada and North America and London, and he successfully completed that. So he went on and he invented lots of other things. He invented a safety elevator, because the first elevators were not very safe at all. And he invented a hygienic room that was used in hospitals, and lots of other things. And so the fourth thing I want to hold up from his story about the spirit of this place is this commitment to the use of reason and the results of science, which is one of the sources of our faith tradition and was so important in his life story. And so I want to leave you with this skill set and this invitation to think about how to connect to the spirit of a place, and to remember that you are part of the spirit of this place. Whenever you live out the values of our community, you are walking on holy ground. Thank you, and see you soon.
Thank you for that story, Chris. Speaking of arriving in sacred space, let us just take this opportunity to, perhaps if we were floating around the rooms that we were in, to land, to feel the presence, feel our own presence in the spaces that we occupy, wherever those spaces are. And one of the best ways of doing that is by pausing and by connecting again with our breath. So I'm going to invite you to breathe with me. I can remember one of my speech coaches in seminary saying that when you arrive in a space, you should land, you should look, and you should love. And then begin. And as I land, and as I look, and as I love, I see the presence of the cutouts in our sanctuary right now, including some notable new additions that I want to call out because they are just so beautifully done. I see that Ezra and Zoe are here. I see that Judy and Jen are here in the back. Those two best friends are hanging out in the back pew where they usually sit, actually. And the kids are up here in the front, and it just really is such a lovely thing. And it couldn't come at a better time, because the service is about the spirit of the place, the spirit of the meeting house, and what that significance is. Our spiritual theme of the month, as you know, is spirit, which we can feel as the essential quality of community and the perceived power of places. And I want to say to you that this place in particular does have a power that if we are open to it, we can perceive it. Today we consider the power of this meeting house, our church building, and this particular room, a great hall that we call the sanctuary. This is a spot that reminds me of the powerful presence of the holy every time I come into it. And my sense of the power of this place is not to kind of mystify you with anything woo-woo, but really to express a kind of openness to the power found in the mundane, the power captured in windows, in walls, in light fixtures, in carpet, and on our pews. How did I first come to feel this power? Well, it happened before I was even the minister here, when I came as part of the search process. And the thing that sold me on this place, besides the people that I met on the search committee, was really this space itself. The sense of light and air that one feels here, the elegant simplicity of the space. There are so many churches that one could visit, perhaps churches that you visited, that have a very, very different feel, oftentimes by design, closed off from the world, mediating light in ways that draw you into the space, but forgetting about the world beyond it. Oppressive stones and arches, statues and other symbols to kind of draw your attention. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with those kinds of spaces, but that is to say that this space is different. It's communicating something entirely larger, perhaps grander for those who need it. And that is a sense of openness and possibility, a radical encounter with the holy on the simplest of terms, one-to-one, unmediated by symbols or distractions. The holy is what you need it to be in this space. And I felt that, and I felt that it was a blank slate where all things were possible. And in time, that has been the case. We've created some beautiful experiences in this space together. Now, this particular building was built in 1864, and it was built as a Congregational Unitarian Society that is now the Unitarian Universalist Society of Grafton and Upton. And what I want to say about the structure of the building actually has very little to do with the actual details in the space. It has little to do with the clear glass windows, the plain and unornamented walls, the pulpit unadorned behind me. It really has to do with the feeling of the space. And I like to imagine that this room is like being inside the body of a guitar, the body of a violin, the body of a cello that's been well played for centuries. Beautiful music, beautiful tones, beautiful vibrations over centuries fill the body and resonate in the wood, causing the wood itself to vibrate with an entirely different frequency. And that's what it's like to be in this room. It's like being in the body of a well-played instrument, an instrument that played songs of joy, songs of freedom, songs of openness and possibility. The vibrations of those musics, of those sermons, of those hugs, of those experiences had here alter and soften and add a sense of warmth to this space. And it's a feeling that one can perceive if we are open to it. So I imagine that this room works in the same way that a well-played instrument works, where every note, every tone, every smile, every hug, every bit of compassion and commiseration is held in trust in the resonance of this space. And when I say held in trust, this resonance is that it's still here, even though we're meeting socially distanced as a virtual faith community right now, a community in exile, so to speak. That resonance is still held in trust for us in this space. You know, it's becoming more and more apparent that we're moving in the direction where we could perhaps meet in person again soon. And I remember thinking about that the other day and feeling just a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety about meeting in person. I feel like I've gotten used to this environment on Zoom and looking at people on screens. I'm not sure I'm ready to look at people in their faces again. And I say that because in time we will all get used to seeing each other in person again. And until that time, we can trust that those vibrations, that resonance that I spoke of earlier, is still in the space. It is still held in trust for us when we are ready to return. It's not going anywhere. It's right here in the fabric, in the DNA, in the supports and posts and beams of this building. Now, our reading this morning calls our attention to the very traditional architecture of the New England Meeting House, of which this church comes from that tradition. And in the reading, we hear the absence of all sorts of things, the absence of domes, the absence of arches, the absence of transepts, of sacristies, of crosses, the absence of stained glass, the absence of odors, no odors to steep the sense in luxury, no niches for saints. We're presented with the most simple kind of space for assembly. We can hear the words, "Hark, the church bell, hark, the church-going bell, sweet is the time passed in the house of prayer." We, on this day, assemble in the temple of our God, and we use our breath to worship him who gave it. We hear the words, "No stately windows decked with various hues, no blazons of dead saints repel the sun. Ours is a faith of reason. To the earth we leave the senses to interpret her. We calmly wait in silence expectation." Who was this person who penned these words? This was none other than Margaret Fuller. Margaret Fuller, the author of our reading, was born in Cambridge in 1810, and she was a force to be reckoned with, a fierce advocate for women's rights and the rights of all people. The writer Kimberly French in the UU World magazine describes Fuller as a towering pillar in the temple of American intellectual history. She is described as a key intellectual of the 19th century transcendentalist movement, right up there with Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau, one of the three. Transcendentalism, some of us might know, takes its name from the Transcendental Club, which was formed in Boston in 1836. And most people will recognize that American Unitarianism is both inspired and reshaped by its encounter with transcendentalist thoughts and sentiment. This movement, which sprouted right here in New England, is the very embodiment of liberal idealism, self-reliance, the power of intuition, and my favorite, the sense of divinity in nature. French, in her article, goes on to say that although she once wrote, this is her paraphrasing Margaret Fuller, her quoting rather Margaret Fuller, she wrote that there is nowhere I worship less than in the places set apart. Maybe because of that, Margaret Fuller is definitely one of us. Her intellectual legacy, which called for personal transformation and social justice, equality for all, democratic ideals, and human rights, couldn't resonate more strongly with the Unitarian Universalist Association's 7 principles that we honor today and every day. Her life was intensely lived for each day of her 40 years of life, and it was a jarring, intoxicating fusion of brilliance and arrogance, compassion, and vulnerability. These are French's words about Margaret Fuller. And what I would invite you to consider, as you heard in the Time for All Ages, is that Margaret Fuller is also one of our ancestors whose spirit inhabits this place, that infuses the radical and elegant simplicity of this room with power, with energy, with deep feeling that we can connect with. Today I want to call your attention to one of the sources of our faith, one of the sources that reminds us of just what we encounter when we come together in places like this, one of the sources that reminds us of the energy that's held in trust for us in this particular place. And that is our first source of inspiration as Unitarian Universalists. That source is the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. I'll read that again for you. That first source of our living tradition is the direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which move us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces that create and uphold life. That is what we encounter in this space, and that is what is held for us in trust in this space. I am very, very proud of this particular building, and I know it's probably bad advice to be proud of things, especially things made out of wood that can catch fire and burn to the ground. Let's hope that that never happens here. But I am proud of this place. I am proud of the simplicity of faith, the use of reason, the exploration and the search for what is true that happens in this place and has happened in this sanctuary for as long as it's been around. And we've been around for a very long time. When one comes into a space like this, anticipating crosses and other symbols, stained glass windows, oppressive architecture, and one doesn't find that, it's an invitation to consider all sorts of possibilities. It's an invitation to consider a deeper and richer way of connecting, unmediated by distractions. A one-to-one, immediate connection with the holy on sacred ground. And I am very proud of that, and that is something that I want all of us to be proud of, to know the history of the people who called themselves Unitarian Universalists and who worshiped in this particular space. But more than the sense of pride that I encourage all of us to have, I want us to know too that that sense of longing that we experience in wanting to return to this place, and that sense of absence, that nostalgia, that it is right for us to have those feelings, and that we should remember that we will be back in time. So, when you see those videos that are so wonderfully shared by us, when you recall those sermons, when you recall the meals, when you recall the friendships and the children who grace this space with their presence, when you recall the sharing that occurred in this room with so much bravery and so much vulnerability, I want you to know that those things are still here waiting for us. Those vibrations, that resonance is still here in trust for us when we are able to return to it. Those challenges that we encountered in this room, they are also still here, waiting to transform us again. There is an incredible power in this space, held in trust for us. Some might call that power God. Some might call that power truth. Some might call that power love. Whatever we call it, it is still here. And if we listen, we can hear it. The Franco-Senegalese poet Barago Diop reminds us to listen more often to things than to being. To listen to the voice of fire, listen to the voice of water, listen to the voice of the wind, listen to the sighs of the bush. These things and others are the ancestors breathing. And I would say to you, listen to the windows as they speak to us. Listen to these stern, forward-facing pews. Listen to the resonance of this space, unencumbered with distractions. These things are speaking to us too. These things are the voices of the ancestors as well. Those who have died have never, never left. They are with us now. So until we are able to be together again in this space, remember that there is a power here held in trust for us. And that is the spirit of this place. May it be so. And amen.
Thank you, Reverend Daniel. I'm comforted by the phrase, resonance is held in trust in this space. And being here right now, I do indeed feel that. I appreciate it. Please take a moment and sit and reflect on your experience with the words that Reverend Daniel shared. What do they mean to you? Please hold these in the sacred silence. Thank you. Following today's service in the Zoom fellowship time, we will gather to say hello and share fellowship with one another. We create this community through our donations of time, of talent, and financial support. These donations make possible not only this gathering here this morning, but also the other works of this congregation. Please see your digital order of service and look for the yellow Donate button. Click on the button and do be as generous as you can. You can also find us on Venmo, and you can make a donation by visiting our website, UUSGU.org. Please continue also to mail your contributions. All of this information can be found in your digital order of service. If you have questions about how to get connected and staying connected to all that is happening in this dynamic church, simply email vanita@uusgu.org, and that's spelled VANITA @uusgu.org. Following today's service in the Zoom fellowship time, we will gather to share our reflection on today's service and to say hello. Today's fellowship time host is Christine Johnson. Please join us. And now the offertory music will be played by and was composed by Bob Nickel. It's called Summer Green. And now for just a couple of announcements. This Wednesday, March 3rd, yes, March, is the Women's Wisdom Circle at 10 a.m. Please contact Helena Leet Pellegrini for more information. And her email is in your bulletin and order of service, leetpellegrini@gmail.com. And Thursday, March 4th, is the worship committee meeting at 7 p.m. And for more information on that, please contact Reverend Daniel at minister@uusgu.org. Also, if you're not receiving our newsletter Voices or the weekly online bulletin, do consider subscribing by emailing Vanita Bala. And it's at vanita@uusgu.org.
I want to invite you to join us in this work of connecting with the holy in this space and in the world. We know from our time together that the ways that we encounter the Spirit, the ways that we encounter love, the way that we encounter peace and God is through our relationships with each other and our relationships with those around us and the natural world. So I invite you to join us in this important work, to be guided by the principles of our faith that remind us of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, that encourage us to search for what is true, and that empowers us with the knowledge that we are not alone, but we are part of a web of life that is dependent and interdependent on each other. Know this. Know that despite our distance right now, that you are seen, that your presence is felt, that you are loved, and that I love you. Now, this work of transforming ourselves so that we can transform the world begins today. The light of the chalice that we are going to extinguish is now ours to carry out into the world. And so I invite you to turn your attention to our chalice as we sing the words to extinguish it. As we go, let us remember this, that whatever it is we dream we can do or believe we can do, we can begin it this day. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it, so let us be bold in our living and in our loving, bold in our giving and in our forgiving, so that the world awaited becomes more nearly the world attained. Go in peace and be a blessing.